Let's encourage everybody to begin getting back to your seats. We are really excited to hear Sister Azar teach us on the subject of hospitality and how that relates to everything else we have been hearing and receiving today.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to talk more about the practical part since, husband and Brother Reed mentioned a lot of what I'm gonna talk about, but I'll try to focus more on the practical part. So hospitality for us living in the Middle East, it's not a choice. It's part of our life. It's part of what we do. And the reason it's important because as a shape on our culture, it brings more honor for us to host people, to bring them to our homes or through that relationship. And it reflects more about the family. Of course, we are hospitable to our family, but also to strangers. Mm-hmm. And the word hospitality that the Bible uses, it's from the Greek word that is philonoxia, which we know the first part of the word philo, which is love, and the other part is stranger. So basically, hospitality means a love of a stranger or for a stranger. Now, the Bible tells us in Hebrews 13:1, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. And we do this in the church a lot. We get together, we spend time with our brothers and sisters. But the other part of that verse in that passage in verse 2, it says, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. So the word that is used for fellowship or what we usually do, among each other, it's a different word than hospitality. And it comes from the word koinonia, which is the fellowship between the brothers and sisters, but it's completely different than the loving of strangers and opening your home and being hospitable. The most example that I can see portrays hospitality in the Middle East. So if you feel like you can't be hospitable or you don't know how to be hospitable, I encourage you to read this in Genesis 18. And it tells us a story about Abraham. The Lord appeared to him, and it says, as he lifted up his eyes, he saw 3 men standing opposite of him. And just the energy of the story, it kind of gives you the example of how hospitality is being practiced in the Middle East. And it says that he ran to them, speaking about Abraham, he ran to them, he bowed himself to the earth, and it says he almost begged them. He said, please do not pass by. Do not pass by your servant. So he's almost begging them to come. He's a little pushy. And he said, let's bring water and let's wash your feet. I want you to rest. And then he hurried to his wife and he said, I want you to bake 3 measures of flour. I don't know why he picked 3, but that tells you he even specified the amount. And then he went and he brought curd and milk. He went and he picked a calf. And the passage talks a lot about he hurried, he rushed. So he wanted to make sure that he's doing everything he can to make them feel comfortable, to make them feel welcome. And that's the example that we want to follow. Now, after they ate, they rested, they asked for Sarah, and that's when they told him that a year from now, God's going to bless you with a child. And then, after they left, they looked at Sodom, and it tells us that Abraham was walking with them to send them off. And that's another thing. If you're invited to a Middle Eastern home, they don't, you're leaving, okay, bye, they close the door. The visit ends when they leave your property, or it's not when you're done. And we experience this here. We visit people, and we learn, we give people excuses, but they'd be looking at their watches, or be like, okay, it's time to leave, or time to go to bed. And we're like, what? It's kind of like you're kicking us out, right? But so just, be, and you can give that signal, but you have to be sensitive to them. Just say it in a, subtle way, just to not be offending. And so, for Abraham and Sarah, it was a matter for them to bring honor to these guests. So it was not a choice for them. It was something that they had to do, or an obligation for them to do. So because we live in a more individualistic culture, if we invited someone and, they did not accept our invitation, we usually give them excuses. We usually give them, time and space. And this was not, as I said, was not Abraham, what Abraham did. He was a little bit more pushy. But when you're trying to build a relationship with someone from a collective culture, don't be hesitant and don't worry about being too pushy, because they expect that from you if you are working on building a relationship with them. It's something that they want from you. Because if you're not pushy, they see it as, Shadi mentioned that it's a disinterest in them. And I know we do a lot of, inviting people to church, but people from different culture are not going to be open up. They're not going to be trusting to talk about their struggles, their emotional struggles, or whatever life journey, they're going through in a church setting. We have to start investing in building a relationship with them outside the church. And we might never be able to bring them to church, but we can help them and guide them to salvation outside the church walls. And the more comfortable they are, the more open they are. So we have to be patient in our work with them. In the New Testament, it tells us in 1 Timothy 3:2, a bishop then, or in other translation it says the church leader or the elder, must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, and then it says apt to teach. We have to be hospitable because we can teach them. Right. But if they're not comfortable, if there is no trust, if they're not open to hear us, then they're not going to listen to us. There's no relationship. And why would they have to listen to us? So our focus must be more on the individual, and then the teaching will come. We were actually having a Bible study with two couples in Wisconsin. They're Arabs, and they're in their 80s. And the first first meeting on Zoom, they're just talking about their family and their children. And then the second visit, I'm like, okay, we want to start the Bible, we're going to start talking. And then the third time, we're kind of starting to get more into the doctrine. And I'm sitting there like shaking my leg, like, okay. Actually, he's telling me, let's focus on, he muted himself and he's like, it's the event, not the task. So sometimes we want to see the results right away. And, it's like we have these steps 1, 2, 3, and we want to move to the next person. But we can work on multiple people at the same time. Right. And, take our time, build a relationship, and then we can, it's on, the Lord's timing. Another word that the Bible uses for strangers is sojourners, and it means or describes a person or a group of people residing either temporarily or permanently in a community and place that is not primarily their own and is dependent on the goodwill of the community for their continued existence. And I'm just going to go through these verses really quickly. It tells us in Leviticus, you shall treat a stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you. But then the second verse here, it says, for the land, God's telling the Israelites, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourner with me. Even the Lord gave them the land, he still considered them as sojourners. So basically we are all sojourners together. So, but more so those that are immigrated, more those that they still don't feel that they have a home or they have a family and they're not settled. Amen. Just quick examples of what the Bible tells us in Deuteronomy. First, he encourages to love the foreigners, and then he says to use our tithes to bless the foreigners. Assemble with foreigners to listen to God's word. Invite foreigners to holidays and feasts, and we do invite people to 4th of July. It's a safe time to invite them, if you have a church event, 4th of July. So you're not inviting them to the church service, but you're easing them into knowing the people, building the relationship, so that the next time you invite them to church, they kind of, ease into it, start understanding the culture, and then take care of their physical needs, as foreigners, if they need anything. So basically become their family, and offer them whatever you can offer them to help. And this is just, again, to point out, in Romans 12:13, it tells us, distributing to the necessity of the saint and given to hospitality. So helping people in the church is a great thing, and it keeps the body, connected, it keeps the body strong, but it's completely different than giving hospitality to the people outside the church. I just want to share here something that we all struggle through. Adam Hunley came the second year we were here, and he preached a message I'll never forget. He was talking, his message was, there's no perfect weather, because today is the day of salvation. So for us, it might not seem like it's a perfect weather. I'm busy today, I don't have the ability, I have other obligation, but this might be a perfect weather for those people. And people that are especially like immigrants, or let's say international students, or people that are moving from one state to this state, or from their city to a different city, they are in this time in their life where they are more perceptive to, because everything is changing around them. So they are looking to build a new family, new relationships. So that is the right time where we can adopt them and help them. And so some of the excuses that I'm guilty also of saying like my house is too small. I am, let's say, not a good cook. I don't know how to entertain people. I'm an introvert, or like they might not be open. So again, it's not about when I'm ready, it's about when they are ready.
Absolutely.
This is us when we came in, a few months before we came, in 2007. And we look like this cute family, but I can tell you the amount of anxiety that we had. I mean, we're coming here for a 1-year plan. We have no family. Our visa will be here, valid for this 1 year. We have no idea what we're doing next. Our plan was to go back to Jordan, and here we are 15 years later.
Wow.
We're still here. And there's a lot of uncertainty in our life. But the church, when we started going to our church, they were interested in our story. And what I want to say here is, no matter how the person looks from the outside, the most dangerous thing we can do is assume. Is assume that they don't need God. Assume that, they don't need our help. They're not gonna be ready to hear the salvation message. But everyone, regardless of their background, they have a story and they have a struggle in their life. And so I just want to point a few examples of what happened to us when we came here. And of course, and I know a lot of people do this, when we came in, people are smiling. They're trying to learn our names. They're shaking their hands. It was different. It was not just, you're smiling, okay, new people. There was more of they're asking us questions, and that's what Shadi was talking about. Questions for us means you're interested in me. Let me tell you more about me. And a few months after we started coming, Pastor Jones called me, and he said, do you guys need help? Can I help you with anything? And at that time, we were sitting in the evening, and I was looking for a school for our son, who's 19 now. I was looking for kindergarten. And he started giving me school names. And I'm thinking, he's probably sitting in front of his computer and looking up names for schools. And I'm thinking, this is the pastor calling me to look for a kindergarten? I mean, our respect to authority is really high. And it means a lot to us that the pastor or someone from the church is checking on us, even as this very simple thing like this. Shadi mentioned the Bible study we went to about sanctification. After we went to this Bible study, a lady from our church called me. And she's like, hey, just checking on you. And I said, well, we're doing good, but we went to this Bible study and we're talking about sanctification, and it was a little hard, the language. And I said, we should keep coming, right? And she said, yeah. So she didn't even have to say anything to encourage me. Her phone call was very encouraging to me, that for them, it matters to me that I'm coming, and they are checking on me. They want to make me feel comfortable, so that meant a lot to me. The other thing our pastor did, he invited us for Thanksgiving. And at that time, we didn't know what Thanksgiving is. We didn't know what the food is. And after we learned, that it's a family thing, and we felt so loved. We felt that he is our family. And I can tell you, after our first 2 years, when we went back to Jordan to visit our family, I was crying because I felt like this is my family and I'm gonna miss them.
Wow.
I was crying and I was feeling this struggle, like my spirit is not happy, that I'm leaving this family. So basically, they became our family. And I want to encourage you is that if you're reaching someone from a different culture, if you're not ready to invest your time and be their family, it's easy to win them, but it's going to be very hard to keep them if you're not going to become their family. And more practical parts about the hospitality. We do a lot of, if someone invites us and we're like, oh no, especially Arabs. I mean, when we are dealing with Americans, we don't do this because we understand the culture. But with Arabic families or other, collective cultures, usually if you invite them, they're going to say, oh, no, it's okay. Like, you don't have to. So you have to insist, the first time and the second time. So the casual invitation is not going to mean anything to them. It's kind of like, hey, let's get together. Yeah. And so the worst that can happen is that they would say no. But if you keep inviting them, they're going to say, eventually they're going to say something.
I have the reservations. This is the third time. What you said the third time.
And so when building the relationship or a friendship with someone from a collective culture, hospitality, reciprocity is very important. So I say it's reciprocal because with the collective cultures, people are obligated to repay you. So now we have to, invite you back.
No strings attached.
So, yeah. So they actually keep a mental tab of who, right? So who invited the last? Okay, it's my turn. Let me do it. And you can use this for your advantage. So if you invited them, or if they invited you out, you can say, well, now it's my turn. You should come to my house. And then if you invited them, you can say, well, I owe you one. You should come to church. And so, and if you're inviting them to your home, try to honor and show them that you're honoring them, and you can make, multiple or different kinds when you're inviting them over. And let's say if you can't cook the food, you can order the food, but it's good to point out that, oh, I got this food from like the best restaurant or like my favorite restaurant. It's not like just I ordered something. Hey, let's eat, I ordered something, right? And so it's an honor when you are showing them that you're serving the best food. And when they come to your home, we usually say, hey, feel comfortable, here's the coffee, here's the snacks, the desserts are there. They're not gonna eat, they're gonna go home hungry, I can tell you. So you have to insist, and you can say, let me fix your plate, or I'll make coffee for you. And so the same when you invite them to they invite you to their house. I don't want you to keep saying, no, I don't want to, but just don't wait for their signals. Like sometimes they would, even in the Middle East, they would put the food in front of us, but we won't touch it until they would say, please go ahead. It's kind of like they're giving you the permission to start. Tfaddal, yes. When you're invited, let's say you're meeting out, usually people expect when you say, I'm inviting you out, that you're going to pay for their meal. So if you don't want to pay for their meal, be selective with the words that you're using, like, let's meet outside. So it's not, I'm inviting you outside. Right. Usually people, when we go, especially with people from the Middle East, it's a fight for the check. So when we heard it here the first time, split the check. There's no such thing. It's a race for honor. Wow. We went to Oklahoma with his cousins, and secretly we talked with the wait staff, and we told them to bring the check. And so Shadi paid, and his cousin was really upset about it. He went and he voided the payment. And he did. And I was like, whoa, this is a whole different level. Now, the reason why would they not accept your invitation is because they have some dietary restrictions, like food dietary restrictions, and they don't want to burden you, and then don't have to explain all of these restrictions. So you can ease things for them, and you can say, just ask them, do you have any dietary restrictions? Or you can Google it. Look for, whatever religion is. Always vegetarian is a safe option. And be upfront about it. We tried to invite the Afghani family for Thanksgiving, and we remembered last minute, and Shadi wanted to invite them, and I said, well, you have to tell them that the turkey is not halal. And if you're inviting them, the only thing they're gonna eat is mashed potato. So be upfront. So he called them and he said, I'm sorry, and they said, well, we can't come. And we said, okay, we'll make another time and we will make sure that we bring halal food. And so, just generally, we know Muslims, they don't eat pork or anything that includes alcohol, and their meat has to be halal, which is, the animal is killed in a certain way, kind of like the way the Jews do it. Indians, they are lacto-vegetarian, which means they do drink milk, but they don't consume the meat itself. And some of them, they do chicken or fish, but they don't do the cow because it's a sacred animal. This is a list of what's, especially for Muslims, what's allowable and what's not allowable. And I want to show it just to show you the complexity of how they deal with their food. They can't go to any store and just grab anything and eat it. So you have to be very careful when you're inviting them. And so you'll see some of it says halal, some of it says haram, which is allowed or forbidden, and some of it says mashbur, which is suspicious. Yeah. And so some of the things they cannot use, Colgate, toothpaste, candy because it has alcohol, and I think the toothpaste because it has lard in it. A marshmallow has lard. So they are very, one of our ladies in our church that's working with the Afghani family, she said we spent 3 hours in a grocery store in Ann Arbor because Ann Arbor, it's not a Middle Eastern store, so a lot of it is not allowable for them. I want to touch a little bit about women, and I'll try to do this in 15 minutes.
You're doing great.
One of the things that women from a collective culture struggle with is identity. There's a lot of pressure on women that even live here or raised by a collective culture, in a collective family. Because in a collective culture, the family, relatives, even dead ancestors in the Asian culture are impacted by one's behavior. And it was interesting to me to find out when I was doing some research because I was trying to find where did this come from. So in Confucius's teaching, which we started in China but then carried out through Korea, Japan, and most of Asia, it expresses the viewpoint about the need for Asian individuals to submit to the greater good of the collective group, and doing so as a means of honoring yourself and others. So this is in turn would bring about stability and harmony, where you are to honor your superiors and strive toward unity and group cohesion. So living in a society that have different values, especially for women, teaches the individual to think for oneself and to speak up contradicts the cultural values. And to some degree, of course, their religion. So women from such culture may therefore feel like an internal conflict regarding which worldview they should identify with, and they feel that they are forced, they're forced by their community to live and to behave in certain culture, but then when they meet their, college peers or their work, their co-workers, they feel like they're being pressured to live in that world. And for me, I can't remember when was the point, but someone was talking about our identity is in Christ.
Yes.
And I felt that was so liberating, that I don't have to identify with my culture. It's not my identity does not belong to where my culture is or the way I was raised is. And it was so liberating to me. And so these things encouraged me, and I hope that they would encourage someone that you're working with them.
Yes.
Share with them that God loves and cares for them as an individual.
Yes.
Share how Jesus, he broke cultural norms, like when he talked with the Samaritan woman. Share with them how the Word of God tells us that he has a plan and a purpose for each one of us.
Amen.
And without criticizing the culture, encourage the personal growth. And I'll give you some examples from our life. The first few weeks when we started coming to our church, I remember we were sitting in Pastor Jones's office, and we have been going through a Bible study, and he said, "Do you guys want to be baptized?" And I remember I looked at Shadi. Because if he said no, I can't say yes.
Wow.
I mean, we can talk about it at home and, I try to convince him. And it's an honorable thing for a woman to be submitted to her husband. But now I think it should not be on the expense of my own salvation. And I'm thankful he said yes. And I still see myself, even till now, trapped in the way I was raised. So even I feel, it's ingrained in me.
Right.
So, and even if I feel like this urge to go pray for someone, I don't want pastor to say, why did you go and pray? Even if he won't even know what I prayed for, but it's just in me. I'm like, okay, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to bring dishonor to my husband. So I keep suppressing myself, and I'm trying to get out of that and just, break that. So encourage women to be in ministry when they are from collective culture. They are not they're not going to volunteer. I know here we wait for people to come to the pastor and say, I want to be involved, but they're not going to do this because they feel like they're stepping out of their place. And so we can encourage them. And of course, you can see where they're at. A woman from collective culture can be proud of their culture, whether they like it or not. This is how I raised. I don't even know other ways. So I have to like it, whether I like it or not. So try not to assimilate them to the American culture. And try not to assimilate them to the church culture, but to the Bible culture.
Yes.
Mental health is viewed as a weakness. So women usually don't talk about, their struggles, their disappointment, sadness. It's rarely encouraged. And women are encouraged to endure and be patient. And so we don't do a lot of coddling and, loving. I learned here to hug my kids because my mom never, I know she loved me, but she never hugged me. My mom till now, if I come closer and I want to kiss her, she gets like stiff and uncomfortable. It's just not, we don't do this, right? And there's a stigma of, traditional counseling. Trying to skip over some of this. Again, another practical example. I spent some time, I built a relationship with 3 Arabic ladies, not related to each other. And with time, it took time to build that relationship. So we would go have coffee, go shopping, do things like this until I built that trust. And then, Shadi, we tried to build a relationship between the husbands. So we started inviting them to our marriage classes. And that would be another place, because these women are not going to be open, even men, they're not going to be open about their struggle or marriage issues. Inviting them to these events, they're not going to be open up, but they're going to learn from others. So it's a venue, for them to learn. And I remember one of the ladies that we invited, with her husband, she told me, she said, I feel God's presence in the marriage class on a Friday night more than what I feel him in the Orthodox Church on a Sunday service.
Wow.
Another thing we do is we expose our non-church people with church people, or people from different culture with our church friends. And we do a dessert night or board game night. And we are very strategic on, okay, this person can get along with this person, or this is a single guy, with this single guy. And so just be smart on how, because you don't want to be stuck with someone holding the conversation with you. Yeah. And so with time, they start knowing our church friends. And so when we invite them to the church, they know people. Right. And we're like, oh, you're going to meet, this person that you met at our house. And they get even more excited to come to the church. Again, most immigrant women that are even born here, but raised in a traditional or collective parents, value interdependent over dependent. And women can be viewed as the vessel for the family honor. So their behavior is like a mirror. It reflects their family, their husbands. So basically purity, righteousness, and obedience reflects honor, and disobedience to the cultural norms reflects shame. Failing to obey or follow these values leads to shame, where individuals feel that they have so disgraced their family. And shame in the eyes of the people from the shame honor culture is permanent. It's a very heavy weight that they carry. And they feel like I will never get out of this. It's like a stamp on me that will never go away. And it will basically prevent them from seeking help when they are distressed and hiding their emotions and therefore not share their struggles. And these things, what brings shame to women from a collective culture can be as simple as not getting good grades at school, or having a romantic relationship with someone from outside the culture, or even someone from a different religion. Going against parental wishes of, like, what are you going to study in school? Shadi shares sometimes the story, he was accepted to do medicine, but he didn't want to do medicine, he wanted to do hotel management. But he never told his dad that, because it's not a choice. I mean, you get accepted to do medicine.
Until now.
And according to his grades.
It was good, yeah, exactly. So the belief that women must carry the burden of honor for society is counter to the gospel message and was never intended by our loving Creator. So Jesus forgave us and took our shame on the cross, and that's the one thing that it's good, to share with people from a collective culture. And we give example of the adulterous woman. Jesus forgave her in front of her family and the community. One of the Bible stories that we can share with them is the woman with the issue of blood. According to the Jewish teaching, she was unclean. Nobody can touch her because they will become unclean. Most likely because of her issue, she was not able to bear children, and that even brings another layer of shame. So the only way for her to be clean is for the issue to stop. And so she moved from a place where she's desperate, and she realized that there's nothing more for me to lose. And so she went and she followed Jesus, and she touched him secretly because she didn't want him to know that she's unclean. That's the level of shame, like you're even separating yourself from God. And so Jesus, we all know the story. After she touched him, he was more interested in healing that deeper wound in her, the shame. And that's why he said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." He gave her peace, and that was more important for her. That restored her honor in the community. And we want to take someone from feeling the burden of shame and bring them to the God who will take away that shame. And God is the only one that can do this. Share that our God is not a harsh God. He's not a distant God, because Muslims believe that he is a harsh God. He's very ruling and distant and scary. Talk about how God loves us. We are all in need for a savior, men or women. He elevates us all in the same level in the presence of men. In a collective culture, just want to talk a little bit about roles. I have one more slide after this, I'll be done. The role of the woman is mainly revolves around the family, around maintaining their education, cooking for them, the household, being a support for the husband. And so basically suppressing their dreams, their ambition. And it's a great thing to be this person that the family relies on you, but on the expense of the freedom of choice for you. And the example that I really love in the Bible, it helps me so much. And I always learn. I was even learning when I'm studying it a few weeks ago, is the story about Martha and Mary. Martha is a very good representation of the collective culture. She is the oldest sister. She felt the responsibility of, I am the host here. I have to make the food. I have to bring for the needs of my guests. Where Mary represents the very individualistic thinking. Jesus is here. This is what matters to me. I'm going to spend time with Jesus. I want to bring our attention to when Luke was talking about Mary, he said, about Martha. Martha was cumbered with much serving. Luke's choice of this word, serving, it comes actually from the Greek word that we use for deacons. So it's serving. She was not busy doing nothing. She was serving, or the word is also used for church ministry. So what Martha was doing is very respected in her community. So when we're reaching someone from that community, we can't bring them out of doing something good to bring their attention. Because Jesus never talked to Martha in a negative way. He appreciated what she did, but he directed her attention to what Mary also was doing. So basically what I'm saying is, open their eyes for the balance of what they need to do.
Amen.
So it's not only being busy and just yours. I mean, I had a conversation with Shadi. I feel like I'm a zero. I'm a nothing. Like I only provide for the family. And then I started realizing I can have a relationship with my Savior. I can have a choice to build a relationship with Him. And that's what we want to, encourage people.
Amen.
And so, again, do what Jesus did. Bring them, redirect them, show them the balance. Encourage their needs to spend, and talk about your story with, your relationship with God and how through that relationship He had helped you. You even feel like He's even more closer to you. And because Middle Eastern women or women from a collective culture, they are always giving. They're always giving, so they feel drained and there's nothing to fill. So what I want to encourage them is that you can keep giving. You can stay in that culture, but basically you want to be filled with God to be able to even give more.
Amen.
Here's my last thing I want to talk about: women modesty. There's no struggle when you're bringing someone from a collective culture. I mean, we all see them very modest. Most of them, they actually changed here because they come out of their culture and they feel more comfortable. But Asian culture also believe in modesty, not only Middle Eastern. I mean, some of them because of their religion, but also for Asians, they talk about it because it's an attitude and of their character, and brings them to be humble and reserved. So what I want to encourage you is don't shy away from talking about your modesty, because that will attract them more to you. I remember even talking about relationship in the church. Like one of the things that attracted us to the church was the relationship between the youth. Because our plan was to come here for 1 year, and even if we stayed, when our kids are gonna hit the teenage years, we're going back home because it's safer. But when we found out that, because what people learn about the American culture is from what you see on TV.
Right.
And we thought this is how all Americans are. So we were so impressed by the church and knowing that there's no dating, the way that we think dating is. And so that was very encouraging. So don't shy away. Don't shy away of talking about, how our temples, our body is a temple of God. We reserve our body because we honor God with that. There's so much to talk about it. I think I'm going to stop here. But the last thing I want to say, Brother Reed, I was in 2015 in Jordan. You preached a message I will never forget. If the sheep has an ear and 2 legs, don't give up hope on it. So don't give up hope on the person that you're working with. As long as they're hearing you, as long as you have that connection with you. If you don't know how, bring it to God. If you're not bold enough, bring it to God. Just pray about it and He will give you the encouragement. We have His Spirit. What else we need? We just need to put it in activation and have Him work in us.
Amen. Amen.